Welcome everyone to this series of videos about the Garmin G1000 PFD and MFD units. I'm going to start off with the PFD, and what I'm going to try to do is really break down the videos into like short segments, like to explain certain functionalities or features of the G1000 to make it very easy for simmers or even real-world pilots to learn how this unit operates, and without having to read like a 1,000-page manual. Please, I'm not telling you not to read the manual. Obviously, the manual is the main source that you can go to get details about the features of the unit. However, what I'm trying to do here is to give you a quick introduction to get you like up and running as quickly as possible. So today, with this video, I'm going to start with the basic layout and these buttons. Like we're going to discuss what they do quickly. Not everything, obviously. I'm going to skip certain things for other videos. But if you watch this video, it's going to get you up and running with this main unit. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so I'm going to start first with the radio or comms and the nav. Let me explain that real quick. So here you have two comms, COM1 and COM2. All right. Which one is active? Which one are you sending and receiving on? That's not here in this unit. That's on the audio panel, which shows which one you're using to send and which ones are you listening or receiving on. You could receive on both, but you can only send on one at a time. It makes sense. When I speak, I should be speaking to only one frequency. When I listen, I could be listening to two different frequencies. Okay. So this is the COM1 and this is the COM2. And always the active frequency is on the inside. So if I look at the comms, COM1, the active frequency or the one that is being used right now should be the one on the inside, which is 125.2. Or if I'm using COM2, it would be 118.7, the one on the inside. The one I can modify if the standby one is the one on the right. Same thing for the NAVs. I have NAV1 source and NAV2 source. Okay, could be VORs, different VORs. And in that case, the active one is the one on the inside. 117.1 and nav1 and 115.1 and nav2, and the standby one is the one I can modify until I get the right frequency, and then I can make it active. All right, so how do I do this? Well, very simple. Here is the COM knob, and since I'm using the Semiotic software to illustrate this, I am going to show you what does it mean to have a big knob and a small knob. In the real unit, there is a big knob on the outside, the outer knob, and the inner knob, the small knob. And in the Semiotic, the way this is simulated is that if you see me pushing plus or minus on the top, that is the big knob. And if I see me pushing the plus or minuses on the bottom, that is the small knob. So if I am using the big knob, it changes the whole number, okay? And the small knob will change the fraction. So let's say I want to set a frequency of 118. Let's say, for example, 118.2. So here we go. I use the big knob to go to 118. Here we go. And the small knob to 0.2. And in order to make this frequency, now this is the frequency I want. I want to make it the active one, the one actually that's being used. I'm going to use this button right here to switch. And boom, it's now the one that is being used on COM1. If I want to modify COM2, how do I switch between COM1 and COM2 in order to modify the frequency? You press this button. So if I press this button right here, boom, here we go. I am now on COM2. I can modify this frequency with the big knob, as you can see, or the small knob. Make it active. Press the switch button here, and it will switch the frequencies. And that is the basic functionality of the COM. That's it. Okay, moving on to the NAVs. Same logic exactly. I have the nav outer knob and the inner knob. The big knob is the whole number and the inner knob is for the fractions. So if I want to, for example, change this frequency to something else, here we go, 112.1. Here's 112.1. I use the big knob and the small knob. And now I want to make it active. I'm going to use this switch button. And now it becomes the active one and nav1. And if I want to modify nav2, how do I come here? I just press this button, push 1 and 2. It says here, push 1 and 2. Self-explanatory. I press here and it will switch. Okay, and then I can modify this frequency, as you can see, big the whole numbers and the fraction, and then use the switch button here to make it the active one. Okay, so this is the basic functionality of the COM1 and the COM2 and the NAV1 and the NAV2 features. On the upper right, there's a volume button, and the volume button, obviously, Well, what do you think? Self-explanatory. If you turn it to the right, it will increase the volume on the active COM. So here I am COM2, so I'm increasing the volume on COM2 by turning it clockwise and decreasing the volume by turning it counterclockwise. If I want to change the volume on COM1, I press the button here, push 1 and 2. Now I'm on COM1 and I will increase the volume and reduce the volume as needed. All right. Then there's another feature. It says push for squelch. Well, squelch, what does squelch mean? Well, usually the COM frequency it's receiving all the time. And if you don't push this button, the G1000 provides you with automatic squelch. It means it's going to suppress all these low, weak frequencies that cause noise, and it can only pick up when somebody's actually transmitting on the COM. Okay, COM1 or COM2. So if I press it, it shows now I'm using manual squelch, so it's actually receiving all the time. It's a good way to test if that radio is working before leaving for takeoff or before moving on the ground. And what you do is you press it. So I killed the automatic squelch. I have now manual squelch, and I can listen to that hissing sound. It's receiving. I know for sure that it's receiving, but usually you turn that off. There are more features on the audio panel on how to adjust the level of the squelch, all right, but that's not the topic of discussion today. Good. So we discussed the volume knob and the comms, and then we look at the nav. What does the volume mean and the push to ID? Well, in the G1000, it is very essential to understand one thing, that once you see the name or the three-letter abbreviation of the fix, the VOR, for example, that means it's already been identified by the unit. You don't need to listen to the Morse code that tells you, hey, just like a normal audio panel with a normal nav unit in another aircraft, then in that case, you need to listen to the Morse code to make sure that you're actually receiving on. In the G1000, once you see the three-letter abbreviation here, that tells you automatically that it's been identified, and I don't need to listen to the Morse code. But, okay, if I want to listen, I can push. It says push to ID. You press here, and since I'm on nav2, I push the ID nav2. It's going to ID this one if it can hear anything, and I can adjust the volume exactly by rotating right and left. Here we go, and I can increase the volume until I hear the Morse code of that VOR station, okay? And I press again, and the ID is gone. If I want to check if I'm receiving on nav1, I go ahead and press the button to switch and go ahead now and press the push to ID, and you should be able to hear something. If it's too low, you can increase the volume with the knob clockwise to increase, counterclockwise to decrease. That's it. This is the basic COM1, COM2, nav1, nav2. We're done. Moving on to the next thing. What is this? You have an outer knob and a small, sort of like triangular inner knob. Okay, it's self-explanatory too because it's explained right here. It's written down. You can see the big knob is borrow, meaning you change the QNH or the altimeter. The little one is coarse, and I'm going to talk about this one in a little bit. Okay, so how do I change the QNH? Well, big knob, I rotate it clockwise, for example. Here we go. Here's the QNH is changing, or reduce it, the QNH is decreasing. And if I want to change this to inches of mercury, I'm going to show you how to do this in just a second. That's the purpose of the outer knob. That's how I set the QNH. The little knob is for coarse, and I'm going to show you what this is for when we discuss the CDI button. Boom. Moving on to the next thing. Range. What is the range for? Range is the range of the inset map, which I'm going to discuss in a second. But if I run it right now, if I have the map showing and I want to increase or decrease the range, well, clockwise, and always people get confused about this. You always forget, like, is it zoom in or zoom out? Always remember one thing, that whenever I turn it outside of the screen, outside of the unit, it's going to zoom out. When I turn it inside, towards the inside, it's going to zoom in. So let's try this for a second. Here we go. I am now zooming out because I'm turning it clockwise, or I am zooming in by turning it counterclockwise, as you can see here, and the map is being zoomed in more and more. All right, and it says here, push to pan. What does push to pan mean? I mean, once I press this button, it becomes a joystick, and you get a little cursor here. And no, this is a joystick. You can move in left and right and up and down like an actual joystick. And if you do that, the cursor is going to move to the right, so you can pan the map to look at somewhere where your aircraft is not located. Up, right and left, or up and down. If you press again, it's gone and it comes back to center your aircraft. So that's the purpose of this. I am not going to discuss anything regarding to the direct to menu, flight plan, procedure, clear, or anything about the flight plan in this video, there'll be a separate video about this because we're going to explain how to set up a flight plan and how to fly according to the flight plan and do this basic manipulations and certain different things that ETC might direct you to do to be able to manipulate this flight plan and to achieve what you're looking for. But I'm going to focus on the enter button because I'm going to need it in other features. All right, alerts, self-explanatory. Well, if there's an alert that comes here, in order to clear that alert or to see the details of it, you press alerts. Okay, nearest, well, again, self-explanatory. Show you, for example, nearest airports. And what if I want to scroll between those airports? Like, how do I do that? This is the main knob to use to scroll amongst things. And always think of the big knob as the guy who makes you scroll on the outer menu, like the big picture. And if you want to go inside something, you use the smaller knob to go inside to modify it. Think with this logic. All right, so look, here we go. I am now using the big knob to scroll between the different options, as you can see here. And for example, if I see a frequency right here and I press enter, I pressed enter and automatically it placed that frequency on the comm I'm using as a standby, so I don't have to tune it in manually. Okay, so again, big knob is scrolling. Here you go, 123.850. I'm going now to press enter and boom, it is tuned in now on the standby comm 1. What if I'm using COM2? So I pressed this here and switched to COM2, and let's now pick another frequency. See what happens, and I press enter, and it placed it right here on the standby on the active comm. So this way you don't have to tune it in and waste time. Okay, and here we go, and you can scroll up and down between them, and that gives you those airports and the frequencies. Okay, tower, 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 etc. And we're gonna come back to this later. So quickly, just to recap, we've discussed everything up to the nearest, and I'm going now to discuss about the timer and references. Okay, simple. I go now, I press timer and references. It is exactly what it says: timer for timer and references, reference values for FE for the flaps fully extended, for the best angle of climb VX, best rate of climb VY speed, and you can adjust these speeds and make them appear here if you want to from here. All right, so I have a timer now. And it's 0 and it says start and it's flashing. How do I start it? Well, press enter and the timer starts. And it says flashing now stop. If I press enter again, it will stop it. And now it's flashing reset. If I press enter, it will reset it to 0. Okay, good. Now, like we discussed before, the big knob versus small knob. Okay, the big knob makes you navigate like big menus or between different items. Here you go. I'm using the big knob. Look how I am moving from item to item with the big knob, as you can see here. But okay, now I am on the off. I want to change the off to on. Well, the big knob is going to move me to the next item, so I have to use the small knob now to jump in. And yep, here we go. It changed it to on. Change it back to off. Big knob will take me to the next item. Small knob will make it change. Change with the small knob and come back. Here we go. I want a minimum to show. Use the small knob now. Turn it on. Big knob to bring me to the next item. Now I go into that item. I want to change the number, and I use the small knob
Minimums.
to put
Minimums.
the value that I want. Okay. If I want to get rid of this screen, I press again the timer and reference button. Boom. It's gone. Good. Next one is ident, self-explanatory. I have a squawk. If the ETC asks me to ident, I press ident, and you can see here it's going to show ident for maybe a second or two, and it's going to do the ident, and so that you would flash, your aircraft would flash on the radar screen for ETC, and they can identify you when they ask you to. Transponder, self-explanatory again. What is the transponder? Let's press it to see what happens. It took me to a different menu. Okay, and this menu has things related to the transponder. Very logical. It has ident, it has code. Well, I press code, and now I can enter a transponder code. Well, squawk 4224, 4224. Here we go. I pressed 4224, and it entered the squawk, and it took me back to the main screen. Let's say I want to change the transponder mode. Again, self-explanatory. I go to transponder, and I have alt, I have on, I have standby. Okay, if I want to get back to VFR code without having to enter 1200 in the US, for example, I press VFR. Boom, 1200 is tuned in for me automatically. But now I want to, use alt mode Charlie, to actually report my altitude. I press transponder again and pick alt, and now it's green and it's telling you now you are in alt mode, okay? And always remember that once you go into an item on the bottom and you want to go back to the main menu, just on the bottom, you just press back. It's the second button from the right. Always. I press back, it took me back to the main one, okay? Great. Next one, we move on to DME. What? If you have a distance measuring equipment on the aircraft. Okay, great. I have a DME, but I have two NAVs, nav 1 and nav 2. Right. I want to use the DME with which frequency? Do I want to use it with 112.1 or do I want to use it with 115.6? Which is it? This is the option, guys. So you press on DME, boop, it tells you, hey, mode nav1. My DME now is going to receive on whatever frequency I have on nav1 if there is a DME. If I want to change it, what do I do? Do I use the big knob? Oh, it's not working. Why? Because I need to go inside this menu. Here we go. I used the little knob to go inside. And now I can use the big knob to navigate between these main items. I want to DME to be tuned into nav2, okay? Or nav1, nav2 or nav1, okay? And then I want to go back. I can press clear and I can press clear again. The clear button will get me out of here. Or I can come here. I can use now the small knob to go to nav2. And then if I click DME again, it also gonna take me out. But the DME still moved to nav1. So how come it didn't select it? Well, press DME. Here you go. Small knob. Go to nav2. Enter. Now it's officially to nav2. All right. And I can press DME out again. Or I can press clear, it doesn't matter, and it shows here, well, my DME now is working with the frequency on nav2, which is 115.6. If there's a DME station on this frequency and I'm within range, I will be able to receive the distance here. Done. CDI. Okay, what does CDI mean? Course deviation indicator. It is what you're going to use to navigate. Okay, well, this is, here shows you the heading of the direction you're flying. Okay, all right, so right now it says GPS and it's in magenta. So now if I have something in the flight plan, this is the course deviation indicator. I am going to follow the flight plan with the CDI, selected to GPS. If I press this button again, CDI one more time, it's going to switch me to nav1 and it became green up here on the upper left. Look at the mouse. All right, what did that mean? That means I am using this frequency. If there's a VR station, I'm using it to navigate, all right, with VR navigation. And usually, the course now is set to 19 or 6. I want to change the course. That takes me to this button on the right, this knob on the right that I told you. It's with the borrow, the smaller knob, and I can change the course there. Look, now if I rotate it clockwise, it increases. As you can see, counterclockwise, it decreases, and I can pick a specific course I would like to fly with the VR navigation. If I press the CDI again, now it becomes sort of like a double line, also green, and now it tells you you are now using the second frequency on nav2 to navigate for the CDI. You change the course exactly the same way. With the course knob, you pick the course you want. So the CDI is what are you using to navigate? It's a course deviation indicator. Am I using the GPS? If I have a flight plan, and I'm going to talk about this in a different video, am I using nav1, okay, the frequency tuned in at nav1, and it becomes green? This is what I'm using. Or if I'm using nav2 to navigate, and this is what the CDI for. Then we go to the PFD button. What is the PFD button for? Think of the PFD button as sort of like the options, like the settings. I want to change certain things about the display, things I see, things I don't see. Think with that logic. I press PFD and I get all these big menus. Nothing major. Let's go through them one by one. Alerts, we know what alerts is. Back takes me back to the previous, menu on the bottom. Okay, no problem. Standard borrow. Standard borrow is, well, 1013 hectopascals, or 2992 if you are inches of mercury. So you don't have to keep scrolling on the borrow here. It just takes you there automatically. So let me press that, see what happens. Whoop, 1013. And look what happens when I press that. It took me back to the main menu. It's like, hey, you finished your job here. But I want to go back again to the settings, and I want to show you how to change hectopascals to inches of mercury. Again, that is an option in the PFD, something you want to change, like a setting thing. So always think, in order to change something like this, I need to go to this button here, the PFD. Press there again, and it says here, altimeter unit. I press on that, and here, two options, hectopascals or inches, or even meters. So, okay, I will press inches, and became 2992. I press back. It takes me to the previous one, okay? And I press back again, and it takes me all the way back, all right? So if I want to change the altimeter, use the borrow big knob. Again, here you go. I want to change it. Okay, 300 9, for example. That is the altimeter at the airport where I'm at. Okay, let's say I'm in Van Nuys, or now I'm at John Wayne in Orange County. I change the altimeter there. If I want to bring it to 29992, instead of having to keep rotating this borrow knob, the big knob, to bring it back to 29992, I am expert now, like I'm an expert with the G1000. I will go to PFD options and press standard bar. That's it, 29992. It's done. All right. Okay, back to again to the PFD, the settings. We finished the ones on the right. Now we look at the ones on the left. Well, if some units are equipped with synthetic vision, so you can activate that or deactivate it with this button. Okay, so you can explore that a little bit, see what happens. Defaults takes you back to all the defaults of the unit. Wind, this press on wind, you have different options. Here's option 1, shows you crosswind and headwind. Option 2 shows you just the combined component of the wind, wherever it's coming from. And option 3, it will actually headwind and crosswind, but shows you the arrow of the combined wind. I mean, the actual final vector of the wind where it's coming from. Or you can completely turn it off. Look, off. I don't want to see the wind at all. It's up to me. So option 1, option 2, option 3, or off. I'm going to put it in option 1. Again, it's something in the setting of what you want to see on the PFD. You got to go to PFD. PFD on the bottom is sort of like the big settings where you adjust things. DME, well, this button here says, I want to see the DME or I don't want to see the DME. And we discussed earlier, if I want the DME to show me nav1 or nav2. That is from the main menu on the bottom. When you press DME, you can select it to nav1 or nav2. But I don't want to see the DME, I make it disappear. What is bearing 1 and what is bearing 2? Well, we're going to talk about this. Here we go. Here's bearing 1. Bearing 1 means a bearing, sort of like an RMI, to several. You can select what this bearing is going to be pointing to. Well, for example, to nav1. If I have something active on nav1, okay, of UR frequency, and it shows me the bearing to this one. If I press on it again, GPS, okay. All right, well, the next waypoint in the GPS flight plan is going to show me a bearing to it. We'll discuss this in a different video. And the next, ADF. So it's only going to show you to nav1, GPS nav1 ADF, not nav2. Why? Because I have a bearing 2. Look, bearing 2 is GPS, ADF, or nav2. Nav2, if I have something on nav2, it show me a bearing to it and a double arrow. GPS, the next waypoint, and ADF, if I have an ADF frequency for an ADB tuned in. Or I can press it again and make it disappear. Again, it's an option. Option comes from the PFD menu. What is HSI format? Oh, it's just HSI format. You want a 360 HSI or you want an ARC HSI? It's up to you, and it's, again, unit specific. How do I go back? Back button. Here we go. All right, so that gives you a quick view of what the PFD button is for. This guy is sort of like the settings, right? Settings. I want certain things to appear, disappear, that are unrelated to the map. Just related to the nav1, the nav2, bearings, DMEs, wind, altimeter unit. I want to set that thing, always go to the PFD. And set is this map. I have options I can do with this map. I press on it, and it shows here different things. If I have a fancy aircraft with fancy, and I bought all the options with the aircraft for traffic, show and topology, terrain, storm scope, or next route weather, or lightning, then I can activate or deactivate these options on the map if I want to. And declutter, what does declutter do? Okay, here we go. Let's turn this off. What does declutter do? Look, I press on it. It says declutter 1. It takes like the information on the map to one less level. Press declutter 2. Look, it's much less information now. I'm just seeing only the airport. And declutter 3, pretty much nothing except for the map, and bring it back to the default. If I don't want to see the map at all, well, okay, there's an off button. I press that one and the map disappears. I want it to appear. Well, inset is the map, okay, and it appears, and I can see it, and I can adjust the options in it. If I want to go back now to the main menu on the bottom, press back, and I am back. Good. That pretty much covers the buttons on the bottom, and I'm going to go in detail later when I discuss the navigation part in a separate video. Altitude. Well, the big knob is for thousands of altitudes, the target altitude that you want to set up here. This is for you when you fly manually or for the autopilot as an armed altitude, and we're going to discuss the autopilot in a separate video. So I'm going to skip the autopilot buttons for now. But the small knob in the altitude is hundreds of feet, as you can see here. And that's how you adjust this one. Okay, I'm going to skip now, all right, the autopilot functions in a separate video, and let's talk about the heading. Heading, well, I have a heading bug, and I can rotate this one right and left, Here we go. I'm moving the heading bug. ETC tells me turn right, heading 250. I put 250 and then start turning. If I want to sync the heading bug and bring it back to my current heading, just press the button or push. And it says here, as you can see, heading sync. I press that one and it brings me back to syncing the heading. Okay, well, with this, I will stop here. Again, I gave you a full overview of how to operate the unit with basic functionality, how to see things, make them appear, disappear. We're not going to get into the details at all, but if you came from a six-pack configuration and now you move into a glass cockpit like a G1000, with this video, you can at least do the basic. You can manipulate the comms, manipulate the nav frequencies, change them, whatever you want. You can set a target altitude, set the QNH or the altimeter, right? You can use the timer feature. You can set the reference values if you need to, right? You can also show certain things here and make certain things appear with respect to the wind, the DME, the map, etc. You can change the target altitude and you can move the heading right and left and change it to what you want. And always think about the FMS knob, which we're going to use extensively later. It's the big knob. It's like sort of like takes you to the next item, big item. And then you want to go change something in that menu, in that item. You want to go inside it, then you use the small knob. And it says push for the cursor to appear, meaning you push so the cursor would appear or disappear. Well, that's it for the first short video. And in the next video, we're going to start going into detail into other features, and we'll take it step by step in order for you to master the PFD and the MFD for the G1000 in a very short time. And thank you for watching.